Okay, here we go. Friday night, late night happy hour. In this case, DC and the Sunshine Man podcast. Dave Koken is here. We got a lot of college football to get to, NFL, maybe some Vegas stories. We got Christmas coming up. We're in the midst of the holidays. Some good stuff on the way. So start piling into the room, and we'll get to all your questions for Dave. So there actually was some meaningful college football tonight. Dave, did you get on the Pac-12 title game?
I was not involved in that game. I was involved in the MAC title game, and I won that. I didn't think Ball State would win the game, but I thought the points were too high, and got them home. And then watched USC lose their unbeaten season. It's tough to win them all. And the pressure, I think, definitely was on the two unbeaten teams tonight, and neither one responded very well. And the formerly unbeaten Marshall team also got beat. They had one loss, and UAB went in and knocked them around tonight. The most misleading result of the night, though, involved your alma mater, because it was a
close game. It's a close game.
That was not a 7-point game. The human turnover kept Rutgers in it. Adrian Martinez. Yeah, and I'm not. I hate knocking college kids because they're not getting paid to do this. But boy, I mean, talk about a guy who has failed to live up to the hype that he had as a freshman. Martinez, about as much as anybody over the last several years, he just never put it together, and he's got another year. I don't know how he can be the starter next year. McCaffrey's got to go ahead of him.
I'm guessing he has 2 years if he wants it, right? No eligibility taken away this year, right. But he might. Yeah, they either have to run a different offense that's more run based, because that's what he's good at. But the turnovers and the inaccurate passes, and he's also his form is not great. Like he's not a guy who snaps it off. He's really aiming, and he threw a lot of bad passes, then he dropped it. And the problem is when he runs, if he's going to drop it on the carpet, then it's useless.
I think it's time for him to transfer because it's just not working out for him there. And, maybe he gets a new lease on life if he goes someplace else. But it hasn't worked at Nebraska. And meanwhile, Rutgers, listen, they weren't a real good football team, but they made some progress this season. And even tonight, I mean, they got absolutely killed in this game, and still they're right there at the end of the game. They're only down one possession. I'm not saying they're going to challenge for any Big Ten titles anytime soon, but that program's headed in the right direction under Schiano.
They won 3 games in the Big Ten. If I had said that before the season, people would have been like, what? Oh. No chance. And they competed in most of the games. And, Ohio State, they got blown out, but at least they fought in the second half. So it's no one here cares, but it's actually one of, even though they went 3-6, it's like coach of the year worthy, the difference, because where they were coming from. I mean, last year, I think their Big Ten games, on average, they lost 46-5.
Yeah, they got just absolutely annihilated.
They weren't even competitive, not competitive at all. And it just shows you the difference. He beefed up the roster with some key transfers, but one of them was out tonight. It was their quarterback, Noah Vedral, and he's not great. But tonight they were playing the third stringer and basically a run-only quarterback, and they stayed in the game. So we'll see. Yeah, I'll tell you what, the things you notice about Schiano in terms of coaching. First of all, the defense is always going to be pretty solid. They always have good special teams. And, to me, that is the mark of a good coach, because the opposite, right? You go to the pros, Anthony Lynn and the Chargers, special teams can kill you. And actually, I think the yardage difference tonight was like Nebraska 600 to, 250. And, one of the big things was Rutgers actually got another kickoff return from the Crookshank kid. So that's 2 this year, kickoff return for touchdown. So that's going to make a big difference. So we'll see what happens in the future. They had a good recruiting class, and they'll at least be competitive. They won't be the doormat every year and just get destroyed by even the mid-level and crap programs, which used to annoy the crap out of me, and hopefully it doesn't happen again anytime soon.
In the meantime, the big games, the big guns are tomorrow. I know it's been a difficult year, but for one Saturday in 2020, we've got just a dream day of college football. Just some great games tomorrow. I'm glad they played. I know some people, they should have canceled the season, but I'm glad they played. I think it's been a terrific diversion for a lot of people, and we end up with some absolutely great games tomorrow.
Yeah, and you might hear us tonight talk about college basketball and how they need to shut it down and start bubbles. I mean, there's a difference, right? You've got college football. You can have up to like essentially if you start talking non-scholarship players. I mean, you could have 85 guys at your disposal. I mean, if you get what is it? I think the min limit is 53. So if you're talking about roughly 60% of your roster has to be around to play. I mean, basketball, 60% of your roster, you have like 2 guys on the bench, and they're not allowing that. So that's why so many games are being canceled and programs are going into pause. So yeah, I agree with you. There are some things that disturb me, and let's do it before we get into the games. I will tell you, and I know the Rose Bowl is a giant pain in the ass and very provincial in terms of its attitude, but this goes beyond the Rose Bowl. This is a state level thing, and to me, it's going to get politicized. I don't understand the point. Once again, especially if Dabo Swinney, just me, and showing himself to be a low character guy. Dabo and Brian Kelly bitching and moaning that the Rose Bowl will not have any fans in the stadium because they want the families of the kids to be in the stadium during the Rose Bowl if they got placed in the Rose Bowl. And it's like, guys, I know in your states they treat you like the governor. You're not more powerful than governors and mayors, and California's down to Zippo in terms of beds and respirators. Do you realize the optics and then the reality from a safety standpoint of you jabronis coming into town and, the Rose Bowl allowing hundreds, if not a few thousand fans? You can't get why that's wrong and disturbing right now. Come on, guys.
Just move the game. I mean, if you want fans, go play it in a state where you can get fans in the stands. It's as simple as that.
I think that's what they're pushing for, Dave. Is they want the Rose Bowl to have to make a decision. California to have to make a decision. Bring them to their proverbial knees, but just move the game then.
Well, and listen, I don't think that they're going to cave in as far as California is concerned, because if they do, they're opening up a huge can of worms for other things that might not have the same level of importance, if you want to call it that, as the Rose Bowl. But, other people are going to say, well, wait a minute. If they can have their family and friends there, then why can't we have a Christmas celebration with our family and friends in a public place? I'm sorry, but,
brilliant. Brilliant. What do you think? What do you think? Many of the residents of Orange County, which that county of all the counties has been pushing back the strongest. What do you think Orange County residents will do? Say they're not sports fans. They see the Rose Bowl is allowed to have 2,000 fans. Wait, I can't have Christmas? I can't have New Year's? Fuck you.
And I agree with them. I mean, look. I mean, I'm not going one way or the other on these shutdowns because it's not an area of expertise. Let's put it that way. For me, and it's like my commenting on the vaccine. What do I know? I'm not a doctor. But I do know this. You can't just say, well, college football is more important than your life. Okay? You just can't do it.
You think church-going folks who belong to a church that, one of these auditoriums that holds like 3,000 people, same number, 2,000 people, they're going to be cool with the football? Well, it's the Rose Bowl's a lot bigger. We can space them out. Yeah. So now college football is more important than going to church for people of faith. Come on. Maybe the South is. Listen, it ain't out here.
I'm not even Catholic. And in fact, I'm nothing. I'm an atheist. But I have to tell you, I always loved midnight mass. It's just a fun. It's just a really nice gathering, and I would go with friends of mine who were Catholic, and because I'd be invited along. It's like, you want to go to midnight mass? Yeah, absolutely. It was just a real good feeling type of thing. I'm not, and again, I'm about as anti-organized religion as it gets, but that's a good one. So you're going to tell me that can't do the midnight mass? Sorry, which is really important to some people, but you can do the football game. No, I don't think, and I really don't think California is going to cave in on this.
It's not going.
I agree with the comment from Doug.
Yeah. Will Brian Kelly do the right thing if they're invited? Will he turn it down?
No, of course not. He's full of shit.
Boy, what a route to take, buffoon.
He's had such a great year there. Just shut up.
But Dave,
Dabo, you expect it from because Dabo's just Dabo.
Dave, Kelly's got a history of bloviating and having a bloated ego. So again, I've said it all year long that these are the times, like across the board, where you see people's true character come out when there are struggles and adversity, and especially for college football coaches who are never told no. They literally believe they are the governor of their state, and now it's gone above and out of their control, out of their hands in terms of making decisions, and many of them have just jumped on the floor and started, screaming and yelling, and it's, again, like you said, it doesn't surprise me from Dabo. Kelly has a couple of, blips here and there, but Dabo's a ringleader. He has been just an embarrassment.
And as far as the pompous-ass coaches, they are. But they're also making more than the governor in those states. So they're the highest-paid state employees right across the board. So, that's going to lead to an inflated ego.
But doesn't that bring a certain level of responsibility?
I think it does, yeah.
On their part?
Yep. But to them, their life is football.
Yeah.
They don't know anything else.
Well, we went through the scenario today. I think I'm correct on this. The Rose Bowl right now is the 1-4 matchup, and the 2-3 would be at the Sugar. So the coaches are in a weird position, and so is the CFP. Dave, what do you think they do if? So write this down if you need to, because I get all confused. I'm not ripping on you. So Alabama holds on to the 1. Clemson gets in because they get the revenge game done, and they beat Notre Dame barely. Will the CFP then have Clemson and Notre Dame as 2-3? They get to avoid the Rose Bowl, but Alabama kind of gets effed, and they go to the Rose Bowl instead. They have to go to California. They're not in their backyard as the number 1 seed.
Well, I think, because Alabama's going to be the number 1 seed, assuming they beat Florida.
Alabama actually gets a little bit punished in this scenario, the way they set up this whole TV show thing.
Well, yes and no, because I'd rather face Ohio State than Notre Dame or Clemson. The only way Notre Dame gets knocked out is if they get destroyed tomorrow. That could knock them out. If they get beat by 30 by Clemson, I think that might knock them out. It'd be tough to put in a team that gets absolutely crushed in a title game. So Notre Dame needs to play well tomorrow. They don't need to win, but they need to be respectable in that game against Clemson. And obviously, if they win the game, then Clemson's out, and then the screw job takes place because they are not going to put Cincinnati in no matter what.
Yep. It's the fun time of year. We find out again and again this is a TV show and it's all about ratings, and they're like, we do not want Cincinnati on our TV show.
And it's as simple as that. Anybody who thinks it's anything other than business, I'm hearing all this. Well, these college football, the committee, they don't know what they're looking at. Of course they know what they're looking at. They're not that stupid, okay? They're not dumb. They are representing college football, and they're going to do what's best for the cash register.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with fairness. And you can have an opinion whether or not Cincinnati actually is one of the top 4 teams. I actually don't think they are, but they deserve a chance if they're unbeaten and Clemson, for instance, loses tomorrow. What are you going to do? Put Texas A&M ahead of them? You can't do that. It's not right, but they will anyway.
They will. And Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, said it this week. He's like, listen, they don't want us there.
Right.
They don't want us there, so we got to expand the playoff, or this is just a sham. You have nearly zero shot. If you're a mid-major or you're an independent like BYU, I loved when the numbers people at ESPN, whatever their predictolator is, right? I forget what it's called, but they're crunching the numbers, and like 4 weeks ago they're like, oh, BYU's got a 37% chance of getting in. I'm like, what the? Blow up your fucking machine! Like,
really?
It's because it ain't based on numbers. Numbers are a tiny part of it. All right, you got to have 1 loss or unbeaten. Okay, then you're on the dance floor. But after that, if you're not a college football giant, you ain't getting in.
BYU had a 0% chance of getting in
the entire time.
Right,
the entire time.
Never had no chance.
Completely ridiculous. All right, let's break down some of the games. We can go through some of the bowl scenarios and build on some of the stuff we just talked about. And And again tonight, we didn't finish talking USC and Oregon. With USC, this is a weird thing because they were unbeaten going into the game. They lose. I still feel like Helton ain't the right guy. Like, and he just had a pretty solid shortened season. By all looks, it appears they had a good recruiting class, but like, isn't there for SC fans? Isn't there still an empty feeling like this ain't the guy?
Oh yeah, I think the vast majority of USC fans would definitely have that opinion, and he's what he's doing is doing just well enough to survive. And this year was a classic example, even in a short season. I mean, USC had so many escapes this year. They actually could be a 500 team right now. They got lucky against UCLA, and I'm glad they did because I had USC last week. They got lucky against Arizona State. There was another game, and I can't think of offhand who it is that they just kind of barely got through. Was it the Utah game? I think it was. But they're that close to being like a 3 or 4 loss team. But they only lost one, so Helton just keeps his job. And unless he has a really bad season, I guess he'll stay at the helm. And meanwhile, they're getting better coaches elsewhere because it sounds like, and I don't know, I have no inside information on this, but it sounds like Sarkisian might end up with the Arizona gig, which is a very good job. And Arizona will get better in a hurry. I mean, the Sumlin regime was a disaster, but there is room for immediate growth in Arizona.
We talked about another candidate for Arizona. Story said that the Navy coach was the leader right now for Arizona. Would you be shocked if they went that route instead of a little flashier?
Yes.
Why?
I don't. Well, unless he's going to change his style of play,
right?
That's not going to work in the Pac-12. Okay, it's just not. It's a good offense to run when you don't have athletes, and everything's based on precision. If you put Army or Navy or Air Force in a good conference, they get murdered.
But couldn't you argue with the resources, his connections out west?
Oh, he's done well. Yeah.
That he would be able to he'd be going after a lot of the guys that he can't get into Navy right now, and he could go next level recruiting.
Yeah, but those guys don't seem to want to play that style of football.
I think the style of football thing's not even a discussion. If he goes to Arizona, he ain't playing.
I would hope not.
95% run.
I would hope not. Georgia Tech is the one school that under Paul Johnson ran that offense year after year, and they were always respectable, but they never got real good players, and they had a ceiling. They were only going so far.
Right.
I don't know. I no knock on Coach Ken, but I think there's just better guys out there who are going to have more success recruiting and just bring more excitement. I don't think Coach Ken would be an exciting hire for Arizona, and they need excitement right now because Arizona State, they're losing the state battle in a big way. Herm Edwards and Marvin Lewis is a big-time combination at Arizona State. They're getting real good players, and that's a program that's on the rise right now.
Yeah, I was wrong on that one. When I first read, hey, Herm's coming back, he's an older guy, and I didn't like the term, he'll be the CEO. I'm like, I don't know. And as a guy that age, is he going to be like down and dirty getting recruits? They've done a good job. They've done a really good job.
Yep, he's a college coach. He really is. I mean, he gets kids fired up. They're excited to play for him, and he's pretty good at it, too. Yeah. And he hired some good assistants. Look, I know Marvin Lewis got a lot of he never won a playoff game and stuff like that, but the guy knows what he's doing. He's a pretty sharp coach, and their defense has gotten a lot better in a hurry.
This is going to sound terrible because I listen to all the people we interview, but when he comes on the radio show, he's one of the few guys where I'm like riveted. Like I almost go into a trance listening to him speak, like he's coaching me.
Yeah.
And you also don't have the, because I know you're like this. It never gets to a point with Herm where you're like, you know what, brother? Let's shut up, okay? You sound like you're full of shit. Like it doesn't sound like he's a bullshit artist. Like what he's saying means something. You're riveted. Like he is believable, really, to anyone at any age. Like he's an inspiring dude.
He is. He's a believable Lou Holtz.
That's a good one. Believable Lou Holtz. Yep. And you knew the entire time that Lou Holtz was a BS artist, but that might work on some kids too, and it did and it also that also worked in the 80s and 90s. Kids have changed a lot, and while people are like kids these days, fuckers, they're also a lot more worldly. They're not as freaking. We were. I don't want to loop in everyone our age and older, but we were more accepting and more gullible. It's an adult. They're talking at me. I'm going to listen. There are a lot of kids now. A lot more common sense, and they can read the room. They can see who the weenies are.
Well, Holtz had a thing where he was, and listen, I'm not knocking Holtz because he was a really good coach for a long time. His deal, and he used to do this all the time. He didn't know much about the Vegas point spread, but he used it all the time as a motivational tool for his players. If they were big favorites, he's saying, they're not giving our opponents any respect. They're a lot better than this. And if his team was the underdog, he'd use the opposite tack and say, Vegas isn't giving us a chance. And it worked. Now, that stuff wouldn't work now because, well, let's just say that the kids are a lot more familiar with point spreads now, even if they're not betting. They understand them more than they used to. So that stuff wouldn't work. But he used that stuff to his advantage years ago. Holtz was as much of a blowhard as he turned into in his later years. He was a really good coach for many, many years. He to me, a definite Hall of Fame college football coach.
Yeah, it's weird how as coaches get older, sometimes they kind of forget that they're not the coach anymore, and that the world changes. So that blowhard stuff gets worse and worse. And I feel like in some ways, for some people, Holtz is kind of shaved away at his legacy because I really don't want to hear from him anymore with his the COVID battle. My generation, they were storming Normandy Beach, and like, Lou, shut up.
He had already become a caricature of himself because that show with Mark May. I mean, I there were times when I literally thought Mark May was going to run across the stage and choke him.
It's silly.
Because he would be ridiculous, and Mark May didn't. He had to be nice about it, but it's like, oh God.
Now, the flip side of it, and we talk about this all the time about characters and personalities on TV, I don't know that they've had someone like, while Herb Street can be interesting at times, he still has to go back to his core, which is kind of boring. I don't know that they've really replaced Lou Holtz, have they? Corso got too old. He had a stroke, so that, he's not the guy. Who is the guy?
I like the combination of Joey Galloway and the Bachelor guy.
Yes, he's very handsome. Jesse Palmer.
Right. Jesse Palmer. Well, I only know he was on that show, I think, which I've never seen the show, but I like those guys. They know their college football.
You know what I'm saying, dude? You know what I'm saying? Do they have one of those like, hey, I got to tune into the pregame or the postgame because this guy's he's just the Stephen A. Smith of college football. He's crazy.
No, it doesn't have the lure of look. I mean, even if I watch nothing, I got to see the last 5 minutes of game day just to see what what Lee Corso is going to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's Lee
Corso. They'll find someone. All right, let's start bouncing around to some of the title games. So what's going on with Ohio State and COVID? This line dropped. It's 18.5. What's going on here?
Well, they've got some issues, and listen, I think there's just regard and respect for what Pat Fitzgerald is doing at Northwestern. They're good. I mean, they're a legit good football team. They are fundamentally extremely sound. They're going to shorten the game. They're going to run the football. They'll throw when they need to. And he's been just phenomenal as a dog over the years. And I think that's getting some attention. Are they going to beat Ohio State? I think it's unlikely, but I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a battle because Northwestern doesn't beat itself. And you better not make mistakes against them because they will take advantage of it.
In the chat room, who's everyone taking? How many people are firing on Northwestern? They're 18.5, 19, and this is an early one too, so make sure you get your bets down. It's going to be a 9A start. I'll tell you, Pat Fitzgerald, he's a good coach because that was one of the trips I was lucky enough to make when UNLV went there last year, and UNLV was a hair away from winning that game. That was a bad Northwestern team, which is funny because much of the team is back, but they actually got a quarterback. But I will tell you, Dave, from a facility standpoint, and they finally built like a gigantic $300 million facility right on Lake Michigan. It's spectacular, but the stadium itself, when I was there, I was like, oh my, this school actually competes and wins in the Big Ten. Like one of the things people have mocked on UNLV or did for years and years and years were those locker rooms at Sam Boyd. Yep. I'm telling you, the Northwestern locker room, at least for the opposition, was Sam Boyd.
Wow.
Amazing. Like no space, freaking looked like it was 70 years old. And for that guy to
70 years old.
Yeah, for that guy to well, the stadium's even older than that, but for that guy to compete, holy cow.
Yeah, he's done a great job there. And apparently doesn't want to go anyplace else because, Fitzgerald's had lots of offers over the years. He's extremely well regarded. I guess he likes it at Northwestern. It's a great school. And he's got a lifetime contract there.
Yeah, as much as I say, hey, they have some limitations, they do have the advantage of being, and if you get an offer from Northwestern and you get to play that level of Big Ten football and you get the academics and all the connections, yeah, that's a good place to go.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of the total?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even look at totals.
Well, how about the pace? How about the pace of the game?
Well, I think Northwestern's going to try and shorten the game as much as possible. Yeah. And, they ran for over 400 yards last week against Illinois. Now, obviously not facing Illinois here. But I think Fitzgerald's going to go in thinking we can get to 200 on the ground. We got a shot to win this game. And so I think he's going to be run first and will take his time. And that's smart. You want to keep Ohio State off the field.
Dave, why don't you look at totals?
Because I suck at them.
Why do you suck at them?
I mean, I don't know. I just never been able to figure them out very well. The numbers I put together work better for sides than totals. Except in baseball. Baseball, I play totals. But, over the years, I've learned to concentrate on what I do well as opposed to what I don't do well. And that's why I gave up on the NBA a few years ago. And that's one of the smarter moves I ever made. And now that I don't do a daily radio show, I can't tell you anything about what's going on in that league. I'll see highlights on ESPN, but I probably can't name... If you ask me a team, I probably can't name more than 2 or 3 players in the team unless it's the Lakers.
And that might be one of the biggest mistakes the new handicappers make, especially guys who have kind of blown up doing podcast and radio and TV, is that they feel like they have to have a play every day on something.
Yep.
Like if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to embarrass yourself.
I stick with baseball, NHL, college and the NFL, and golf. And now I'll include the KBO because I did that this summer, and I have every intention of doing it again if the games are available next season. Because I like, it's not good baseball, but now I've got a pretty good handle on the talent there, so I'm going to keep following it.
And for your business, it's a niche. Like, what are people going to do? Say, hey, I can do it on my own. I know that league. Screw Koken. Like, no, you might need some help. If you want to play KBO, you might need some help.
It was pretty good for me. I was pleased with it.
Well, you were into it. I know that. Iowa State +6 against Oklahoma.
Yeah, the market seems to love Iowa State here. Sharper money's coming in on Oklahoma. I just couldn't come up with a side in the game because Matt Campbell, well, lately he's maybe shedding the label of playing to the level of his opponent. Because Iowa State for the last few years has been really good when they face upper-level teams and have a tendency to play down when they face lower-level teams. They did it again this year with UL Lafayette, which is a good team, but, certainly one that Iowa State should have beaten. But down the stretch this season, Iowa State is just knocking teams around. Nevertheless, I think Oklahoma's got too much talent for them, and I just don't see Iowa State beating them twice in the same season. So I think Oklahoma gets there. But I really don't want to lay these points to Iowa State. They're dangerous. There's no question about that. I think it should be a good football game.
Clemson, Notre Dame. I don't think both, either coach is distracted because they're talking about the Rose Bowl and fans this or family that. They're both going to be focused. Clemson does have a lot back though as compared to the first game, and in this case, they're laying 10.5. Yeah,
it's not just Lawrence. They had linebacker issues in the first game with Notre Dame as well. That said, and look, it doesn't work all the time, but this deep into the season, if you find an underdog that has won the stats in every game, which Notre Dame has, and has a rushing yards ratio of 2-to-1 or better per game, which Notre Dame has, Those teams do really well as underdogs. I think the game's priced a little too high. I didn't bet it. I came close to betting it. I ended up not betting it because it is Clemson, and Dabo will keep scoring if he can. But Notre Dame's really good. And my number in the game was 7.5. So I think there's some value in Notre Dame, but I played 2 games tomorrow, and this isn't one of them.
All right. The chat room is filed in, all Clemson. So, okay.
Well, yeah, the public definitely is on the Clemson side here. The math guys are going to be on Notre Dame in this game.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're going to get there, but I think it's a better than 50-50 prop on Notre Dame.
Wow. Okay. When you're getting 10.5.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, Book is playing at an extremely high level. And if he has an off day, so be it. But if he's sharp, they're going to give Clemson a battle.
You know, I can't find any of our experts. I haven't really heard many people in the public who want to take Florida plus 17. Are we at 17.5 anywhere on this one? What did I just lose?
Let's see.
Yeah, there's some 17.5s out there.
Let's see.
Looks like William Hill has one.
I'm looking at basketball. I don't think we'll find
No.
find that line at basketball. Let's see what I'm seeing mostly now. I got my Don Best screen. My Don Best screen is on all the time. Yeah, it's 17 juiced or 17.5. You know, look, Florida's going to score points. Their defense just isn't any good though, and you've got the likely Heisman winner throwing for Alabama. Their offense is just so good. It's not just Jones either. And you know, I think Jones is going to win the Heisman, but I don't think he's the best player in the country. In fact, there's probably 2 players on the Alabama offense that are better than Jones. That just doesn't matter as far as Heisman goes. But they're just loaded. I think the number's inflated, but I can't even consider Florida here. So for me, and the other thing is I don't like going against my numbers. I just don't do it as a rule, and especially this late in the season because my numbers are pretty good. And I made the not line 14.5. So I think you got an inflated line, and Alabama might get there anyway, but I can't play it. And all I can tell you is if you make good numbers, you just don't go against your numbers unless it's mitigating circumstances that maybe indicate your numbers wrong. That's a lot of points. That is a lot of points. And Florida's offense is good enough to do some damage on their own. So, you know, is Alabama going to get to 45 here? Because that's about what it's probably going to take for them to cover this number. Because I think Florida's got a good chance to get to 28 points. I mean, it's a terrific offense. And the total in the game kind of indicates that because it's pretty steep.
Yeah, 74.
Yeah.
74.5. I like talking about the emotion of games, but I don't think it comes as a factor in this one. But it's funny, back-to-back comments. Poker Pro said, I think Florida will be flat after blowing the game to LSU. Casey Chief follows up by saying the Gators are ticked off. So I guess he's suggesting they'll be fired up. I can't.
Nobody's flat. Wait a minute. I just want to say this.
In a title game?
Nobody's ever flat to play Alabama.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, if you're playing Alabama, it's a big game. You're excited about it.
Yep.
The Gators were flat. The flat was last week.
Right.
Because the game meant nothing. It meant nothing to them. They were going to be playing this game anyway. And it showed last week. I wouldn't put any stock into and that's also contributed to this line being inflated. Is they just lost to LSU. Game didn't mean anything.
Right.
You know, if they won that game 100-0, they're still playing Alabama this week for the title. If they lost it by 100-0, they're still playing this. Yeah, it wasn't a good performance, but they weren't very well prepared for that game, and it showed because I think they probably spent most of last week preparing for this game. They already knew it was taking place. You see that happen. It even happens at smaller levels. Look, and it didn't. I had Western Michigan last week against Ball State, and part of the reason was I thought, boy, why is Ball State favored in this game? Western Michigan's a better squad. Well, Western Michigan had just lost to Central Michigan, but the game didn't mean anything because win or lose, Western Michigan was still playing Ball State last Saturday for that division title in the MAC. I ended up losing that game by a half point, but Western Michigan was very good in the game. They just found a way to lose it. Fortunately, I got my money back with Ball State tonight, so that did well.
Nice. Cincy, Tulsa.
Because Cincinnati should take the field really pissed off, shouldn't they?
They're 14.
Yeah. See, this is one where there are mitigating circumstances because, and it tells me I don't know what to do with this because we could see two versions of Cincinnati tomorrow. One is a team that just doesn't give a shit because no matter what they do tomorrow, they can't get to the playoffs. They basically have no road to the playoffs. And that could be something that just takes the wind out of their sails. But the opposite side of that is that, all right, we're going to show the world how good we are. And if they get a chance to beat Tulsa by 40, they might just do that. I don't know. I wish I was in the Cincinnati practices this week. And I've been trying to read up on it and see if I could get a sense of where this team is. I think they're kind of pissed off, to be honest with you. So maybe that says Cincinnati is the way to go in this game, but that's a tough read. And this Tulsa team, I don't know how they've done it because they've been behind in like every game this year and by margins, and they keep coming back and winning games. They better not fall behind in this game because that Cincinnati defense is really good. I think the first quarter, this is one where you watch it live. If Cincinnati comes out and they're sharp, they might just beat the crap out of this team. But if they come out and they're making mistakes early, it's a sign that their minds aren't there. And to me, that would be a spot where I might take Tulsa money line because they'll have a shot for the upset. So I would watch the first couple of series in this game and get a sense of where Cincinnati is.
Mountain West Conference. Does the dream end? Do we find out that San Jose State's a good team, but they ain't Boise, and they just get blown off the field? Spartans are getting 6.5.
Well, I think Boise is better, and I actually think they're considerably better. On paper, they just got better personnel. They've got more speed. They've got more size. If you match them up with San Jose State, they're supposed to win this. The one hesitation for me is the coaching. Brennan has been phenomenal with San Jose State. And the team's tremendously resilient as well. They were in trouble last week against Nevada and found a way to get things going in the second half and came back and just flat out beat the Wolfpack in the second half of that game. Harsin, I've never been a big Harsin fan. I think he's done enough to win at Boise, but they're not the program they used to be. And I kind of point the finger at the coach in that regard. They used to. Here's the difference. When you went into Boise years ago, you knew you were going to get the living crap knocked out of you. They were going to win 49-0. Those days ago, it was the easiest bet out there. Yeah. Boise minus the points at home, game after game after game. They were like the Patriots. It's just put your money on Boise and you're going to win more than you lose. Those days are gone. They do not dominate teams to that extent anymore. And to me, they still should in the Mountain West. There's not, outside of San Diego State, there's not a program in the Mountain West that should be able to compete with Boise. And yet we're seeing the gap get close to some extent. So I kind of point that at Harsin. I think Boise wins tomorrow, but I didn't have enough faith in them to lay the points. But if I had to play this game, I'd be on Boise.
I think, there's two parts of that. I agree with you. Harsin is good, but not great.
Right.
I got to see Boise up close last year at Sam Boyd. I thought they were good, but I wasn't blown away. The team that blew me away actually was Wyoming up close last year because the power football they played was ridiculous. But Dave, I would also give credit to the conference. There are a lot of programs that have gotten a lot better. From move it up, they've closed the gap. But your point's taken, and the great thing here is Boise's dropped down just a little bit, and their coach maybe their coach is right. Harson's looking at it, and remember last week it came out that he had an email that he sent in September, and he's like, "We got to get the hell out of this conference."
Yeah, and I will say this: I agree with you on the rest of the Mountain West getting better, but I think part of that was the fact that Boise they were a national powerhouse.
Yep.
They really were. I mean, Peterson had that program to a level where they were a legit top 10 program. Those Boise State teams, they'd have a case to be in the playoffs. I mean, they were that good. And they're not anymore. And to me, there's no excuse for that. Boise should still be dominating this conference, and they've lost a lot of their edge. They're still the best program in the conference, but it's not by nearly the margin it used to be, and it should be. Boise should be Gonzaga in terms of this region in football, where we don't care what conference we're in. We're going to get the best players that are available here. We're going to compete at a big time level, and they don't do it anymore. They went out there, and I know they had injury issues in the game at quarterback, but they got the living crap knocked out of them by BYU. They weren't even competitive in that football game. Yeah. And that, to me, tells you that it's just not the program they used to be.
Let's hit a few more games around college football, and then we'll get to NFL. We got to talk a little bit of Raiders, too. I saw someone earlier ask about games that you guys want to hear about. Someone earlier was asking about LSU and Ole Miss. Boy, who'd have thunk it, right? LSU at home, a dog to the Lane train. It's 1.5 as Lane Kiffin's boys are favored.
Yeah, I can see that. But LSU's some of these young guys they've got who are now playing, they're good. They're going to be a good team next year. This was the transition year, and they've had a lot of problems. But they've got some tremendous young athletes, and their tremendous young athletes are still better than what Ole Miss has. So I don't know what's left in the tank after last week. That was a huge effort by them. Maybe Ole Miss has a little bit of an edge here, but you might want to put a circle on LSU going into next season. That big quarterback he's going to be dynamite.
Am I crazy on this one? Everything to me in the A&M Tennessee game says Jimbo and company will just blow them off the field. We've got a lot of turmoil, as you've pointed out many times. A lot of the assistants on the Vol side, if not all of them, could be going bye-bye. And A&M's got motivation here. I mean, they still have a chance if the results find right. They could be in the CFP. They're not going to win this game by 14. This number's too big.
I don't want Tennessee.
Yeah.
Although they have competed a little better down the stretch, so it seems like maybe they put some of the problems behind them. But I mean, look, A&M should know, and I'm sure Jimbo Fisher is going to preach. Look, let's put it this way: if Tennessee gets up 3 touchdowns, I don't think there's going to be any back doors. They're going to want to get up by 4 touchdowns. A&M does need to make a statement in the game. I think if they were to win by a touchdown, even if things break right with the playoff teams, I don't know that they get in. They probably will because they're Texas A&M, but I don't think it's a guarantee. So I think the motivational edge is with the A&M side here.
All right. What else, guys? What other games you want to hear about?
Again, I'll mention one.
Yeah, do it.
And the line's going up on this game. I mean, look, it's a lost season for Penn State because they went 0-5, but they have won 3 in a row, and they started to get back to playing smash mouth football. They didn't run much against Michigan State last week, but the 2 weeks prior to that, they did. And their rushing defense has really come on. They've dominated the line of scrimmage in their last few games. And remember, Penn State should have won 2 of the games they lost, where they just killed themselves with mistakes and just flat out blew 2 games where they just overwhelmed the opposition and found a way to lose. Indiana was one of those games. Illinois, Lovey gets fired. Most of the attention now is on who's going to be the next coach, and I have no idea who's going to be. They're like mentioning everybody. Probably the best player on the team opted out, the wide receiver whose name I can't think of. It's a long name. He opted out for the NFL draft. Illinois really can't throw. They can only run. I don't think they can run in this game. I don't know how much they will even want to make this trip. I think Penn State might finally beat the crap out of somebody tomorrow.
Okay. Did you think Lovey should have gone bye-bye?
Yeah, he's not getting the players. His recruiting stinks. Okay, I mean, it's still Illinois. I mean, he didn't improve the recruiting there, and that's what they brought him in for. Okay, Lovey's a guy who's got connections, and he's going to be able to recruit better talent. He didn't. They've got to find somebody who can bring talent. Look, it's not if Rutgers can start winning games and Maryland can start winning games. There's no excuse why Illinois can't too. In fact, they should be better at it than those two schools. That should be their main focus with this coach is who can we get who is a big time recruiter.
Right.
Forget the X's and O's. You can get good X's and O's guys any place. You can fill your staff out with good assistants as far as X's and O's are concerned. The head coach at Illinois, the next head coach has to be an ace recruiter.
You know, funny thing is usually football controls everything and sets the narrative, but I think at Illinois, the fact that the basketball program has taken off so quickly, I think it changed the standards for the football program. They look at basketball and they're like, "Hey, Coach Brad over here's got us in the top 10. Yep. Come on, guys."
Yeah, I mean they're talking about being a Final Four team in basketball.
They're good.
And in football, in football, if they win a game, it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I think in a sense, the most interesting game to me tomorrow. I didn't bet it, but I want to see what Arizona State does coming off a perfect game against Arizona. Oregon State could be on fumes at this point. They're running out of players. The running back's still hurt. He's questionable, but I don't know. This guy's a big-time prospect. You can't put him out there on a tender ankle. The quarterback's out. Smith's done a phenomenal job at Oregon State. Absolutely phenomenal. Because that's a bad program, and he's made them respectable. But I don't know if there's enough left in the tank for them to stay on the field for 60 minutes with Arizona State. I'm still considering that one tomorrow.
All right. I'm going to move on to the NFL.
Okay.
And hit a couple of key games. First of all, Chiefs and Saints. Breeze is getting closer and closer to playing. He's probably going to play.
Yep.
The line didn't move at all. How do you explain that one? There's no difference between Taysom Hill and Drew Brees? Is it other Saints injuries? Like, what's the deal here?
No, I think that I think the line was made, quite honestly, with the thought that Brees is going to play this game.
Right.
And so I think they made the number based on that.
Okay.
It's a tremendous matchup. I don't know how sharp Brees will be, but that Saints defense is really good. And they'll give Mahomes some different looks in this game, and he'll probably find a way to figure them out because the guy's phenomenal. But I mean, there's no question it's the game of the week. I honestly I basically have no view on the game at all. But I'm going to be watching it.
A lot of Chiefs win big. It's going to be very enticing for people to take the Chiefs. Yet I think the Sharps will be on the Saints. So
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think they're on there now. I think they were on there from the beginning, and that's why it's been holding steady at 3. We'll see if it changes with more of the public money coming in. They look up at the board and they're like, "Oh my God, Chiefs only laying 3. Give me some of that."
That other team's pretty good,
Yeah.
I mean,
no doubt.
This is a potential Super Bowl preview.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, good reminder too. Let's hit the Saturday games at least before we hit some.
That's right. There's 2. I forgot we're in December. We got Saturday football now too.
Green Bay couldn't cover against the Lions. Very good team. Carolina frisky, but beat up. Still no McCaffrey, or McCaffrey's out. Green Bay 8.5.
That's look, that's a lot of points. Carolina's still a capable team, and Green Bay's defense is showing some cracks, which is I think going to be a problem for them come playoff time. I think Carolina's got a chance to hang around in that game. Don't think they'll win, but they don't have to. Green Bay will obviously be a huge teaser play, but I make a case that teasing Carolina up makes more sense.
All right. We've been talking all week about the Bills being in a kind of a trap spot here, a sandwich game.
It is.
But now the number's down another point.
Yep.
Maybe it gets to 5. It's 5.5. Can we rely on Denver? I mean, they were played a good game last week.
Well, if Drew Lock plays like he did last week, Denver might win the game. I just don't know that Drew Lock can do that 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
That might have been, I think that's probably his best game since he came into the league. Would you agree? I mean, he was really good last week. Here's the thing on Buffalo, though. Really good teams don't suffer the flat spots. They find a way to battle through those. And it might just be that Buffalo now has reached the level where they are a really good team. I mean, that was a really impressive performance against the Steelers. They dominated that football.
And it was consistent, and they never stopped. And that has been the one thing that you could complain about with the Bills is that they from half to half, and especially Josh Allen. I mean, that's next level for Josh Allen is in these games, especially when they get out to a big start in the first half. They tend to fade a little bit. They get a little bit cocky. They've had some teams come back on them. So, yeah, maybe that's the game where they turn the corner.
I lean Denver, but I don't think I'll bet it. And this is the game where I think we find out just how good the Bills are here. If they are impressive at Denver tomorrow in what is not a great scheduling spot, they become a real threat because I think they can play with Kansas City. But we'll find out tomorrow because to me, this establishes whether they're a very good team that hasn't quite mastered that next step, the last step necessary, or whether they are now legit and ready to maybe get back to the Super Bowl for the first time since the Jim Kelly days.
Dave, how do you feel about the Dolphins and where they are right now? And did anything change last week with at least their effort to fire back against Kansas City?
No, I mean I know that.
Or is the story going down 30-10 in the first place?
Well, they're not very good. They're really not. I mean, they're a at best average football team. And I know Ron Rivera is the betting favorite now for Coach of the Year, but I still think it's Brian Flores. Rivera's doing a great job, and the cancer thing is good. He's probably going to win it, but Brian Flores has done an amazing job with what is I won't say mediocre, but one step above that football team. And I still hope. I mean, I want the Dolphins in the playoffs. I really want the Dolphins because I will definitely be going against them. They'll get killed if they get in the playoffs. They just don't have the personnel to match up with any real playoff teams. So to me, Flores has done an amazing job, and I'm reluctant to play against them in a regular season game, and I'm rooting for them anyway.
Does Tua have what it takes to not get caught in that Belichick rookie quarterback net?
Yeah, I think he's all right. It's the rest of the team. They're just not very good. And that's why I just continue to be kind of amazed at what they've done this season. I mean, they're better than the Jets. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting them in the in the bottom level of the league, but they're not a playoff team. And yet they're in the playoff race. So when you've got a coach who's getting the most out of a team every week, and he's done that most weeks this season, you might find better options elsewhere to try and win against. And I don't really want to bet on Miami because I know the team's a fraud. They just are.
You like any of the dogs that are getting massive numbers? Jets plus 17 against the Rams. Jaguars plus 13 against Baltimore. And by the way, the battle for 1 and 2 still going on around the NFL. Tank for Trevor.
Yeah, the Jaguars, they're still trying. They've made a lot of good efforts. They've had a couple of really bad games, but and Baltimore. See, even though Baltimore's a veteran team, and obviously they're very good, they have had some flat spots this year. And coming off that crazy game with the Browns, I would not want to lay this kind of number with the Ravens in this spot. I think that's just Jacksonville will go out there and try. So the Jets. I mean, it was so bad last week. Yeah. Now it becomes almost impossible to play them. But, it's tough for the Rams. Are the Rams going to be excited about this game? I doubt it. So, it might be one of those games the Rams just go through the motions and get a win by 2 touchdowns, and that's not going to get you paid.
Am I crazy for liking the Giants?
No, I don't think so.
Now it's 6.5 against the Browns. Browns wound up losing, but it was an emotional game last week. I guess you could say if something was accomplished. But
and look, the Giants defense is good.
Yeah,
it's a good defense. And if they can, shut down the running game to some extent, you got a good chance. And the Giants, it's a big game for the Giants. They've got a chance to make the playoffs. I know that's it's the NFC East, but they still want to get to the playoffs. No, I think the Giants are live in this game. I think it's going to be a good matchup.
All right. Got to get your take on the Raiders. What was that, and where are they now? And I'm not talking about this season. Where are they now as a franchise? Man, if you're a Raider fan, that did not feel good, and it also you don't wake up going, well, I mean, the future is bright, because I think there are some bright spots on the roster, but this is just completely falling apart.
Well, it has, but they overachieved anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, look where the total was in this team going into the season. They weren't supposed to be very good. So maybe they fooled some people. And because the defense wasn't good to begin with, and it's gotten worse. I mean, it's pretty clear what the Raiders need to address in the offseason. They've got to get some defensive help. I mean, their secondary is atrocious. And I know there was some injuries, but you got a couple of guys in that roster right now who shouldn't be in the NFL. And it showed in this game against the Chargers. They probably should have won the game anyway, but Mariota did a pretty good job in relief of Carr. But I still think, to me, this is a year that the Raiders won't make the playoffs, but it's still a year that they're going to be able to come out of this season and go, you know what, we're not that far away. And if we can just add a few pieces on defense, we're right there with anybody. And I don't think that's an illegitimate thought. But that defense really needs help.
So as a Chargers fan, I'd be excited. You have Herbert. That's a good thing. I think they have a load of offensive talent. You saw last night.
They do.
Hell, the top 2 receivers really couldn't go the whole way, and they got backups running free all over the field. And that's been the case at times with both Guyton and Tyron Johnson. But now your fear is, what if the Chargers close out with 2 wins? They get to 7-9. It had all been pretty much a foregone conclusion that Lynn was gone. My God, could he save his job down the stretch here?
Oh, especially since it's the Chargers, and we know they've been an organization that seems to have hung on to some head coaches.
Yep.
It's going back to the Norv days.
Jesus.
It's like, when's this going to end? And he kept on coming back. It's kind of like Jason Garrett down in Dallas. Again, he's still coached the team. Yep. He's finally not, but you know how long that took. I mean, he basically hung on for 3 years after everybody thought he was going to get fired in San Diego. The Chargers have a history of it's weird because the one guy who they probably never should have fired, they did fire, Marty.
Yep. But
everybody else they've hung on to. So yeah, if the Chargers close well, I wouldn't be surprised if Lynn's back.
Oh boy. And yet if they go out, that's one of the jobs, and the problem is Spanos owns the team, so that there is a limitation there.
Yep.
But that should be one of the teams that is the most attractive job.
Oh yeah, I think we said that a few weeks ago. I don't know whether it was on this show or some other show that I did, but you consider the personnel that's in place there now.
Yeah. That
team is not far away from being a serious playoff contender, and this quarterback is really good. I mean, if he stays healthy, and that's always a concern with quarterbacks, but he's going to be a superstar. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't believe that at this point.
Yeah. But by the way, and you can always push back, and I'm talking about media people, and it's fine to play the caution game. Hey, let me reserve judgment for 3 or 4 years into the guy's career before I blow him up. I also think, because there's a lot of media people who are like, whoa, hold on. And they're grading sort of like my, this podcast and the show does with, at least with Adam Hill, with Josh Allen, where it's like everything has to be fucking pinpoint. He's got to have a perfect game. Otherwise he can't get credit. And I'm feeling that with Herbert, but I'm seeing it, across the country with different media people. I think sometimes we get stuck as media where our agenda becomes more important than just watching the game and grading things correctly. And I think a lot of this goes back to college and the draft, where there are a bunch of media people who are like, Herbert's no good. Not going to be good. Like, he's good. You were wrong. He's good. A lot of people said he was going to be a terrible pick. If you grade him as a rookie, there's nothing negative you can find about the story. If you grade him as a guy who people say is a top 7 quarterback now, like 7 years into his career, sure, you can pick him apart in different spots, but come on, folks. He's a rookie with 27 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He's going to throw for 4,400 yards. He's got mobility. He's a game breaker because Dave, the guy can be in a little slump for 4, 5, 6 plays, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, he just nailed a 50-yarder.
It's also, if you watch interviews with him from last year at Oregon to this year with the Chargers, it's two completely different people. One of the knocks on him coming out of school was, geez, he's awfully soft-spoken. Does he have the leadership skills? He seems like kind of a, something going on there. Well, boy, I mean, if you watch an interview with him now, this guy's an NFL quarterback, okay? He is the guy on that team. So his assertiveness the alpha personality has emerged with Herbert. He knows he's good. He's got great confidence now. I'm sold. It doesn't take me long to get sold. I mean, when Mahomes came into the league, I remember some people saying, well, he's got to do this over a period of time. It's like, are you freaking kidding? Just watch him. His skill set is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it is with Herbert. Different type of physical guy, but he's got a great arm. He's very mobile for a guy that big, and he's got that it factor as far as the football IQ is concerned. He didn't make many mistakes for a rookie. He'll still make an occasional mistake, but as he gets more experience, those are going to be fewer and farther between. I mean, this is a guy who's got a chance to be a 15-year Hall of Famer. He's that good. So get the right people around him.
Yep. Because
the Chargers, if you get a quarterback at that level, you're basically going to be in the hunt every season. I know some people, well, quarterbacks get overrated. No, they're not. Not in the NFL. And you look at, no matter how bad Green Bay's been in terms of personnel from one year to the next, they're always in it because Aaron Rodgers is on the field. And I got a feeling that Herbert's going to be one of those guys where, if he's got okay personnel, they'll be decent. But if you get good personnel around him, they're going to be a machine.
Yeah, I will give credit to Adam, though. He's been right more than he's wrong on young quarterbacks when he said, slow down, slow your roll. And Doug puts up here, Baker had a great rookie year, too. On our show, Baker did not have a great rookie year.
Baker Mayfield?
I'm telling you.
Oh, no.
If you there's a difference between these two guys, and so much of what Baker did. I know he had at least one big game where he had 5 touchdowns, so a little misleading on the numbers, but he's also so reliant on play action. And the other difference is you can run things with Justin Herbert that you simply can't run with Baker Mayfield, who's 6 feet tall.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, it's not like Baker Mayfield's a stiff. I mean, some of the comments on here are like, he's an above average quarterback.
I think he can when he's on, if he has a running game, I think he can be a top half of the league quarterback, and at times he can be spectacular.
I think he's got a chance to be in that realm with the Detroit guy.
What if you say
Matt Ryan, that type, not
Matt Ryan,
superstar, but a good solid quarterback.
Matt Ryan would be nice. What about Derek Carr? What if he's in the Derek Carr range? Or is he already?
Yeah, I think he probably is.
Oh, wow.
Derek Carr's okay. Does anybody think Derek Carr's he's not a top 5 quarterback. He's never going to be.
No. I said top half of the league.
Right. And that's good. I mean, I don't think Mayfield's going to be a top 5 quarterback. That doesn't mean he can't win a lot of games and take his team, if they've got the right talent around him, to be a very successful team.
Well, follow fade. You're saying Derek Carr's overrated. Are you saying that
he's not overrated?
He's not a top half of the league. Or are you saying Raider Nation, when they put him in the top 10 or top 7, then he's overrated? Like, what do you think he's rated?
I don't pay attention to what fans say.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking the listener. I'm asking the viewer here. Like, I mean, have you heard people say Derek Carr's a top 5 quarterback? Because in this town, I don't hear it.
No,
You know
I don't know anybody who says that, unless it's a diehard fan and their opinions really don't count. Carr's, if you draw a line on the first 16 and the second 16, Carr's probably just on the right side of the top 16. He's in the Cousins area.
Right.
Decent. Not going to take your team to another level.
I will tell you, the one thing that I think will hold him back from ever getting to
I like that comment.
Which one?
Doug Crofts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Bears would die for him. A guy who could play for you for 10 or 12 years and just be consistent. The Bears' quarterback history has been so bad. My only drawback on Derek Carr sometimes is his personality and sometimes the way he handles. And it's not even the media specifically. It's just how he speaks outwardly and some of the stuff he says where if you're a teammate, you're like, what'd you just say? Like, a little bit weird, man. And I do think he while having, this is going to sound bad, I think he has an inferiority complex, and that doesn't always have to be something that takes you down. It can be something that drives you, but I think it really does bother him. And I could only imagine him yesterday as he's probably in much pain when he pulled the groin. But him sitting in the locker room, and part of it's like, I'm happy Mariota's doing well, but part of it was probably like, I got to get the fuck back in there. I'm going to lose my job. And like at some point, him lacking that confidence, I think is going to take him down. Like when he does go down a notch, it's going to hit like a bear. He's got to handle himself just I don't know. There's something about him where you're like, he's a franchise quarterback most of the time, but sometimes he slips and you're like, dude, what are you talking about?
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's okay.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say he's overrated because I don't know anybody don't know anybody whose opinion I consider to be valid that has ever thought that Carr's anything. Yeah, in his first year, he gave indications he might become a superstar, but he never really got any better. And he is what he is. And that's not a bad thing. Okay, he's not a stiff. He's a quality starting quarterback.
And the reason I started thinking about it, it's been something, that's happened here and there with Carr all season long, but on the personality thing in a franchise quarterback, when you see Mariota come in after the game and say all the right things. Now, Mariota's not as good. Then here's the thing. It's not a make or break deal. Mariota's not as good. He wishes he were as consistent as Derek Carr.
Right.
But there's something about Mariota where you're like, that's a guy I want to play with.
I wish Mariota had better skills.
Yep.
Because I think his leadership skills are absolutely there, but he just physically isn't. He just isn't he's a borderline starting quarterback. He would not be in that. And if you're making a list, and we'll include Mariota as the starter for now, because I suspect he might be out there next week. He's not in the top 16, and he's never going to be. He'd be in that bottom 8 as a starting quarterback. He just doesn't have the skills, and he is prone to making bad mistakes.
Yep.
With inaccurate throws, and we saw a couple of them late in the game last night. Where he made a couple of really bad throws, and that's just something that separates him from being a really good quarterback. He's got the legs, no question about that, and he can get the ball down the field, but he's just not a complete starting quarterback, and I don't think he ever will be. I do like him though.
I'll also say with Carr, I'm not blaming it all on Carr. Some of this goes on Gruden because there's some stuff with John Gruden this year where you're like, man, like today he came out and said he wasn't going to make excuses, and then I heard stuff that sounded like excuses.
Yeah.
I mean, for him last night after the game, too, Dave, did you see that he came out in the first half and he had an Oakland Raiders hat on, not a Las Vegas Raiders hat on, and like he comes into the press conference and addresses it like, dude, who the fuck cares? Like, why are you even talking about this? And there's times when Gruden he sends a bad message to the guys on the team, and let's not even get into. In terms of accountability and consistency, the COVID stuff this year has been absolute bullshit with the Raiders. Absolutely crap.
This coaches just, I wish they wouldn't do it. But we've seen him here in Las Vegas. Mike Sanford was the king.
Oh, he's the worst.
He was just, I'm not going to make excuses. And then he would blame everybody.
Yep. He'd start pointing fingers.
Yeah. And I liked Mike, but I mean, he used to drive me nuts with that stuff.
And players see that.
Oh yeah,
they hear it, they file it away, man. And when things are going well, it's good. When the chips aren't falling your way, and all of a sudden the coach is doing the same bullshit with the excuses, that starts to affect the players.
There's no question about it. I think Gruden's done a really good job, and but sometimes the TV star in him kind of emerges, and it's like, you know what? Take a page out of Belichick's book. You're not a TV star anymore. Do the Belichick thing. He's the best. Belichick is the best there's ever been. Yep. He gives you absolutely nothing, and it's not his job to. I know the media can't stand him because they never get anything out of Belichick. Oh, Belichick. But Belichick has always had the opinion that it's none of your business. Okay. and I think that's been part of his success over the years. He keeps everything in-house.
This is I haven't, and again, I don't want to ever come off as anti-media because I think we're losing the battle in general. And, Trump and this asshole stuff with the fake news has killed us in a lot of ways. So I don't want to sound like I'm anti-media. I will say, though, I think Gruden, I like what you just said about Belichick. He drives us nuts because he gives us nothing, but it also, that avoids most of the headaches you can get as a coach because the media can be a pain in the ass. And moving forward, maybe less is more for Gruden. Maybe say less. And again, you want availability, but I do think this, because it's a hybrid group of media, and the Northern California media that covers the Raiders is kind of bruised and battered and beaten. So they've got kind of a certain attitude towards the Raiders, like, oh, well, when's it going to happen? When are they going to start to lose? And then you've got the new media he's dealing with in Vegas, which I think is kind of cynical, and is also the stuff they've covered outside of the Knights. They've seen some disappointment. So it's a unique media group. I don't think you need to feed them by talking too much. And again, I hate to say this because I don't want us to be cut off, but I think he's got to read the room, and he's got to say a little less. Stop being so honest. He's got to be careful moving forward. It's time to concentrate on football. And the other thing is, both of these guys, Gruden and Mayock, guys, you got to start nailing it in the draft. Like,
yeah.
Getting Darren Waller is friggin' awesome. Coming up with a surprise 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick, and it turns into a player, cool. But the picks that you have that are the most important picks, they got to nail it from here. It can't be, well, Cleve Farrell's developmental, and they did a good job on Colton Miller. He's a pretty solid player, but some of the other picks have just been, this is ridiculous.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think they've been average drafters at best. And, that's how you build teams, especially with the later round draft picks. And I guess I'll say one more thing as far as Belichick's concerned.
Yeah.
If I were a coach, I would try to do everything the same way he's done it, because he's probably the best coach who's ever lived in the NFL. And that's the way I no matter what my job is, I want to look at who's been the absolute cream of the crop, and I'm going to copy what they do as much as possible because I know it works. So that's the last thing I'll say on Gruden is, and again, I'm not ripping him because I think he's done a very good job overall with the team. But I would like to see less TV star, more coach. If you want to do the TV star, just take the headset off and go back on TV.
Yeah.
I miss him. Honestly, I miss him on TV because I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in the booth.
Yep. And you finally got a guy, Vrabel's very good, but you finally got another Belichick tree guy who's kind of following the Belichick model. And so far, Brian Flores has been an overachiever. He's done a good job.
And by the way, it doesn't get the coverage because it's the Dolphins. He basically get nothing out of Brian Flores as far as information is concerned. He is definitely a clone of Belichick's to some extent. Why not? Smart. It works.
I think in many ways, Sean McDermott is a Belichick clone.
Well, if you work with the guy long enough, you should learn something.
I mean, McDermott opens up a little bit here and there, but he's not,
no.
He's not looking to win the freaking press conference every day.
No, it's not politics where you have to go out there and please who's ever covering you.
Yep.
Your job's just to win football games or basketball games or whatever. And To me, the guys who keep things as much in-house as possible are the best. Listen, Nick Saban is very much, Nick Saban might go off on a tangent sometimes, but when it comes to the actual football stuff, you don't get much out of him. He's very close-lipped as far as Alabama football is concerned.
Oh, yeah. It's actually kind of cool to see one, Saban was down a little bit last year, and I brought this up a million times because I think it's so funny. Ed Orgeron talking shit after the game last year, and you don't have the consistency of Saban. But I'm really curious to see what Belichick's drive is going to do for him to build this offense up again, so he can be a high-level competitor. College football is completely different. You don't get to recruit in the NFL, but Saban this year, I think, is like, if you didn't think, I mean, I believe everyone thinks that Nick Saban is an all-time coach, even though, it didn't work out in the pros. But if this didn't convince you this year,
oh boy, like
his bounce back, his team's awesome. The fucking recruiting, like he's like 67 years old. You think these guys want to recruit? Oh. Saban's like, I will guarantee you, whether he said it to someone close to him or he just has it, to himself. I guarantee you, after last year, he was like, while I'm coaching, this ain't ever fucking happening again. I am gonna work my ass off. I'm never gonna feel like that again. Yep. And I'm guessing Belichick's feeling that way right now too. Now, how is he gonna make the transition without Brady? That's the story to follow.
He'll find a way, and they'll probably get a quarterback. And not for nothing, but this Patriots team, maybe being 500, actually could be one of the best coaching jobs he's ever done because they stink. They
quarterback.
Stink.
Holy shit!
That team absolutely sucks on paper. They've got no speed. The quarterback position, forget about it. Cam Newton's a backup at this point, and Stidham is never going to be a starter. They're not even that good defensively. I don't know how they've won even this many games. They should be like a 4-10 team right now. They suck. That's all Belichick. It goes back to the Matt Castle year. I mean, they lose Brady for the season.
Yep.
And I still remember we were doing our show at the South Point, and we did a Monday show at the South Point. And I still remember this, talking about, well, boy, the Patriots they're dead because they lost Brady. And then they went out there and went 11-5 with Matt Castle.
Yep.
That's when you've got a guy running the team who's really good at what he does, because that team should never have gone 11-5 with Matt Castle at quarterback, and they did. And this team, they're just an absolutely horrible team on paper, and yet they're respectable.
That'll do it tonight. Dave, good luck tomorrow and on Sunday. Actually, real quick, do you have any interest or a winner? Anything, any side, any of your experts have a take on Gonzaga, Iowa, 4.5, Gonzaga?
Gonzaga hasn't played in like almost 3 weeks, which would worry me. It does worry me. So I think they're better than Iowa, but that time off, man, that's I just don't know how. It's just this is the bizarreness of 2020. You're getting stuff that we've never had to do this before. I've never had to look at a team and say, well, how are they going to do after 3 weeks? Because it's never happened before. And I do know this. There are a couple of teams tomorrow that are playing their first game. They're added board teams. They're playing their first game, and they're going against teams that have played 5 or 6 games. You can do the research and find out who they are. I'm taking the teams that have played 5 or 6 games.
Right. It's crazy. It's totally crazy. All right, everybody, we are out of here. Reminder, one of our favorite shows of the year is coming up on Wednesday, the 23rd. Festivus, the airing of grievances. So have your complaints ready to go. And we've got a much bigger crew at Lotus Broadcasting between Raider Nation Radio, Fox Sports Las Vegas. We've changed some of the personnel on Cofield and Company and also on ESPN Las Vegas. So I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting next Wednesday. So real interesting. No holds barred.